Good morning, Gary. Thank you so much for making time for me.
No problem. It's my pleasure. It's good to see you again.
Can you please introduce yourself for those who don't recognize you?
I can't believe there's anyone who wouldn't recognize me. My name's Gary Mickelson. I'm the stage manager on Come From Away on Broadway. And yeah, that's me.
Let's start with the timeline. When did you first hear about the pandemic?
I remember hearing about this strange thing in like late 2019, like November and December of 2019. And I distinctly remember uh, John Oliver, um, has a weekly talk show here on HBO, um, and he had the most straightforward response to it, and he said, "So, how concerned should we be about this? Because some people were freaking out, and other people were saying it didn't exist." And he said, "How concerned should we be about it?" And he said, "A bit. You should be a bit concerned." And and then it just every day it just seemed to be you'd hear something else on it and I go, oh, and something else on it, and then the whole thing just exploded. And it uh and then suddenly Broadway was going to shut down for 2 weeks, and at that point Broadway shutting down for 2 weeks was unprecedented, and I just couldn't imagine it. And I we went I picked up my son at school, and while I was waiting for him to get released from his class, um, I got an email that said the we were canceling the show that night for 2 weeks. So I got really depressed, and my son, I don't know if he sensed that something was wrong, but he just said, Daddy, do you want to run in the? He came out of his school, and we're at the playground area, and there's a grassy knoll kind of thing, and he said, Daddy, do you want to run in the grass? And I just went, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to run in the grass. Then for 5 minutes, nothing was wrong in the world because I was just running in the grass with my boy, and um, and then I realized I had so much stuff at the theater that I needed, my computer and I and so some other personal things. So we went home. I got Elijah home, and then I went into the city, and this was like late afternoon by now, and there were a couple people that were in the theater still, and we were just kind of looking at each other, going, "What the hell is this? This is so bizarre." And then we're just like, all right, well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And then a couple of weeks became a month, became 6 months, became a year and a half, and then 18 months later, we were finally back. And I remember when they announced that we were coming back, and they said, oh, it was in the spring, and we said, yeah, Broadway will probably be back in the fall. And suddenly that seemed fine, but it was still 5 months away. And uh, and we were extremely fortunate that we did a live capture of the show in May of 2021. So it was nice to go in and see people, and we would have, that was like about a month of really strict quarantine, everyone in the hotel. But even before that, we'd have like, you know, about once a month, everyone would get together and have a Zoom call. And there were some people that, that were really dear friends in the company that I would talk to a lot. And I would always reach out, just checking in on people. Um, Especially if I had heard they had tested positive, or if they were there was one friend um, who lived alone, and we set up a monthly call where we would talk to each other every month, and those calls were typically like, like a couple hours long sometimes, just shooting the shit, talking back and forth. And because I mean, I was extremely fortunate because I had a beautiful wife and a beautiful son, and I got addicted to just family when we were there. I got really good at building Legos and Lincoln log cabins and making marble runs, and I was into making fruit spreads and all this stuff. So we tried to make the most of it, but it was not easy. And you could see New York from my apartment, from our terrace, and it just looked so beautiful. At night it would all be aglow and everything, and it just looked so beautiful. And but it just seemed like I can't believe that though that everything is just so crazy over there, and well, everywhere. And I remember every now and then Elijah would point, he would say, "I spy Manhattan." And then I said, "Yeah, we do." And he would want to go. And I said, "Well," I said, "I'm sorry, the world's sick right now and we can't go." And he loves going over there. And but I just kind of dedicated myself to making sure he he was okay, and that it didn't get him down. And then yeah, so I can't even remember what the original question was. I've just been blah 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 blah.
It's fine. Gary, New York City was a very scary place to be at during the start of the pandemic. What was it like in New Jersey?
It was kind of the same. I mean, where I live in New Jersey, it's very urban still. You can see, I mean, that's, well, you can't see it today because it's all cloudy and overcast. Um, but I live in a big apartment building, and I remember we would get notifications that, oh, West New York, which the name of my town is West New York, New Jersey. It's like, West New York has had a case, and there's a case here, there's a case there. All of a sudden, there was someone in our building who had it, and it got a little scary. I mean, we were wearing masks all the time. Um, we would go just out to do our laundry down the hall, wear a mask. Go to take your garbage to the garbage room, you wear a mask. Go downstairs to the lobby to get your mail, or you wear a mask. Um, uh, the lines at the grocery stores were huge, and we uh, we go to at least three different grocery stores to buy everything that we need to buy. And it was, going shopping was an all day ordeal. You would go and you'd have to wait in line because they only allowed so many people in the building. And Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, the line was a block long. And I had a friend who lives in my building, and we kind of became part of each other's bubble. So we could see, he could come to my place, his husband could come to visit, we could go there, and so we would go shopping together every once a week, and it was an all day ordeal because if just standing in line was the longest part. Standing in line for Target, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Aldi. It was a little crazy.
You didn't know when the theaters would reopen, and many of the company members are from away. Like, what was it like for them? Like, it was probably a hard decision whether to stay in New York, to pay rent, to leave, or
Yeah, a lot of people left. I I believe Katrina went home to Newfoundland. I think Astrid went home as well. Um, uh, some people, they went back to their families, to live with their parents. Um, I it's funny. I'm old enough now that it's like, oh, well, I'm not really going to go live with my parents and or with my mom. And Lori said, no, we shouldn't go live with my parents. And we just like, it was like, let's just stay here. So we didn't have any weekend home or summer place or anything to go to. So we just made the most of it, and we stayed here, and we enjoyed the fact that we got to eat dinner together every night, which never happens if you're in theater. And I got to put Elijah to bed every night and read stories, and we played. And when the first part of the pandemic, about the first 6 months, when everyone would bang their pots at 7 o'clock, my son and I were out on our terrace banging our pots, and he loved it. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Um, and I remember we all went together to vote. I have pictures of Elijah putting our ballots in the mailbox. And it was, and there were a lot of little things that would happen. um, I would see Elijah developing a little bit, just because I was there 24 hours a day. And one day we were building a Lincoln log cabin, and there's these little green slats that make the roof. And he took it and he spelled out his name in using the green slats for the roof. And he just went, "Daddy, what is this?" And I looked down and I said, "It's a Lincoln log." And I go, "Wait, you just spelled your name." And he was only 4 at the time. And you may know that, I can't remember if we spoke about it, but he has autism. He's on the spectrum. And so it was a big, it was like a big thing when all of a sudden he took his name. He didn't write it. He knew how to write out his name, but he just took these other things and went, "Oh, I can make letters out of these." And he spelled his name and like took a picture of it, and I was just crying. I was like, "Oh, that's amazing."
And did you test positive during the pandemic?
I still to this day, and I'm knocking on wood, I still to this day have not tested positive, nor has my wife, Elijah. We have somehow managed to stay, well, somehow I wear a mask everywhere I go. But I've managed to stay healthy. We got vaccinated and then boosted, and then I just recently, a couple weeks ago, got my second booster. And uh, we had a couple of scares. There was someone in the stage management office who tested positive, and this was before my son was vaccinated, because he wasn't young enough, or he was, no, sorry, he was old enough, but we hadn't gotten him vaccinated yet, just for scheduling purposes and stuff. And um, and then when someone in the office got it out, and with whom I had been very, very in very close proximity, I was like, "Well, this is it. I have it. I'm going to have it. My son's going to have it." And then the show shut down for we missed 8 performances, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was 8 performances total. But we shut down twice, and somehow, just I don't know why, I don't know how, what I'm doing right, but or just I'm not I'm I don't breathe when I'm around someone who has it or something. I don't know, but I've managed to stay healthy. Have you? Have you been healthy?
Well, I got it for the first time 2 weeks ago, actually.
Oh, sorry. I hope
Oh,
your
it's
symptoms were
okay.
mild. And
It just the masks were cancelled in Israel, and I also went on a trip to London with my parents. And on the 5th day, I tested positive, but it wasn't too bad. I had high fever for 2 days only, and after that, it felt like a regular flu. I just sounded like
good.
Darth Vader, but yeah.
I love it with your accent that you say Darth Vader. That is just fantastic. I sounded like Darth Vader.
Yeah, but I'm okay now. Back to work and
Oh, good.
everything.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah. So when did you return to Chantal Theater for the first time? Do you remember the date?
We did the live capture, and so that was in May, and excuse me, April. And it was it was amazing. The day that we shot the entire thing with an audience, we were walking, and Kaz and I were walking together, and she said, I just heard this, and I didn't think about it, but we're going to be the first people to put on a show for an audience since the shutdown. And it had been over a year at this point. This was, we shut down March 12th of 2020, and this was April of, or either late April or early May. I'd have to look at the calendar to give you the exact date, um, of 21. And suddenly we were going to like do a show in front of an audience, and I knew that it was going to be in front of an audience, but I didn't really think like, holy crap, this is the first audience to see a show. And and they did see a show. It wasn't like they were just seeing us taping scenes. We ran the entire thing start to finish, and then took a break, and then we came back, and then we did some setup shots. And uh and then we got really, we just, tears just started rolling down our faces as we were talking about it. And at the live capture, before we started the performance, our producer Sue Frost said that we were coming, that Broadway was coming back, Come From Away is coming back, and we're going to open September 21st. And it's funny, I had spoken to Sue the night before because we were talking about procedurally when she would make the announcement. And so I knew it was coming. I knew the date, I knew everything, and I just started crying, just started bawling. It was like over a year of waiting and, looking across the river to Manhattan, and wondering when the world would be healthy enough to come back. And it was just a lot of emotions. And I started crying, and everywhere I looked, I couldn't, because we were all together. I were in the wings, stage left, and everywhere I looked, I couldn't, there was someone. So I just kind of sat there and tried to hold it together, and I was crying, and I was, my head was kind of like, doing this a little bit. And there's a gal in our show. She's one of our amazing standbys. Her name is Monette McKay, and she and I have known each other for over a decade, because we did Memphis together. And um and she just came up behind me, and she gave me a hug from behind. And she's pretty short, so the hug was, her arms were really low around my waist, and I just knew who it was just from the size. And I just grabbed her arms, and I still to this day think about it, and I thank her for just giving me what I needed, that hug. And uh uh but so that was amazing to step into that theater. We were, we got those slats on the back wall. I was up there taking pictures of the audience as they came in. And um and I never took my job for granted that I love. I never took Come From Away for granted, but it was like, oh my God, did we miss this? This was just something so special and so precious and delicate. And it was stunning to be back. And then in August, when we came back for rehearsals, um, just seeing everyone again, and even though it had just been a couple of months at this point since the live capture, everyone was again so happy to see each other, and hugs. And it was funny because typically when I see someone now, I go, are you hugging? Are you? And they're like, going, sometimes they're like, it just still freaks me out a little bit. So no. Um, but we were all like, are you hugging? Couldn't even get the sentence out. Are you hugging? And the hugs would start. So um, just, and now every day I see people, I just go, you know what? I'm just so happy to see you, because any day we could have to cancel the show. And Omicron hit, and we had to cancel 8 performances. And being home then felt really strange to not be there. um and then then someone tests positive in the company, and then you don't see them for 10 days. And and you so when they come back, it's like, oh my God, it's so good to see your face. Um so it's like just insane time. When we even last week last weekend and the weekend before that, we were very close to having to cancel the show, and we had to bring in someone, because we had too many people out, and for various reasons, not all for COVID. But we had too many people out. And I called Randy Adams, our producer, at 7 a.m. and said, it was a Saturday, and I said, unless something changes, we don't have a show this afternoon. And so 1,000 phone calls were made, 1,000 texts went out, and then we got a person from a former cast member who was able to come in, and she used to be a standby, so she knew a lot of roles. And she came in, she did the show that weekend, and then they hired her for a week to cover us. And it and then the next weekend we almost had an issue because we had people that were coming back from out of town, and they they got delayed. We had a lot of fog and whatnot, and so it was, eh, you never know. I mean, even if you think, oh yeah, we're fine, we don't have any cases right now, in a couple of days there could be something that happened. People went out, um, or there was, our cast is not masked, so they're very vulnerable to it. And if an audience member has it, and inadvertently takes their mask off just to do whatever, um, for whatever reason, they pull their mask down and they sneeze or they do whatever, suddenly everyone is vulnerable again. And that's what's so strange. I mean, I think we're gonna have a show tonight, but I don't know. Something could happen. Something could happen.
What are the Broadway safety procedures right now?
Well, they're a little bit more lax now than they have been. Right now, everyone still has to wear a mask, which I'm very happy for. Um, they used to have to show proof of vaccination to get in, and you had to keep your mask on at all times. And now it's just, you don't have to show proof of vaccination, but you do have to wear a mask all times. We can't have anyone backstage, no guests, even like family members. My wife used to bring Elijah in every Saturday, and we would go to dinner, and then we would go back to the theater, and Elijah would be there while they were checking the lights. And Peter Guernsey, our spot operator, our follow spot operator, he would sometimes let Elijah push a button, or he would be testing all the templates and all the moving lights. And Elijah thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and he loved it. He loved looking at the lights. And other people would bring their children as well, and they would ride the turntable. Elijah loved riding the turntable. I would sit him up at the calling desk, and he would be able to flip all the cue light switches, and he can't do that. There was one day that Lori brought him in, and she met me at the stage door, and he was pointing. It's like, no, I get to go in. I get to go in. And it's like, oh, you can't. And that's just heartbreaking, that, for me personally, because we had such a connection, together. I've taken so many pictures of him. I remember the first time I brought him to the theater when he was not even a year old. And then uh, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then, I've just seen him. I have all these pictures of him backstage, and I could just see him growing from his pictures all backstage that come from away, and we have this pause on that, and he can't do that now, which is really sad.
Well, probably just a matter of time, and hopefully very soon he'll be able
Yeah,
to go
hopefully, but
backstage.
it's funny because it's not going away. There's always another variant, it seems. Um, Omicron was a bear. I remember getting a little lax and thinking we were going to be fine, and then, because we went September to late December, no one out. I think we only had 2 cases, and we were very fortunate that those cases didn't spread into anything else. It was one case, and then 10 days later, that person was back. Um, and then maybe a month or so later, there was another case. 10 days later, that person came back, and no one else, didn't go to anyone else. So you get a little lax, and you think, oh, you know what, we're going to be okay. And then Omicron hit, and then boom, we had 8 people out at one time. Um, then we had more. Then some of those people came back, and then we had more people out. Um, and now you thought you were kind of through Omicron, but I don't even know what the name of this this current variant is they've stopped going from Greek letters, and but shows are still canceling. Suffs, which is down at the Village, down at the Public, I mean, um, they've canceled show after show after show. Moulin Rouge had to cancel some performances. Um, it's still very much here, and you just gotta hope that you're able to do a show. That if you, with all the positives in your company, that you're able to do a show. We've had, even since Omicron kind of died down, we've had a handful of positive cases, and just luckily we haven't had to cancel a show. We've had enough coverage.
I read that all the come from away companies globally help each other out. Even Gina Carr joined the tour company
Yeah.
for a stretch. How do you
Well,
arrange everything, like logistically?
well, luckily our show it doesn't really vary a lot from company to company, from Canada to the tour to the Broadway to Australia. Um, there are subtle differences, and sometimes a lot, just because shows grow, and this little tiny instance, which is never in the book as, oh, this is what's happening, but oh no, this is what they do. um, and we've been extremely fortunate, um, to have the same team putting it together. um, there's Chris and Kelly, of course, our original director and choreographer, but their associates, Danny Goldstein, as our associate and resident director, and Ricky Hines, our associate choreographer. And they go and they put it in, and we we brought Gino, went in after being away for so long. Our original Oz on Broadway went into the tour, and after just one afternoon rehearsal, you go, oh, okay, I see what you guys do here. It's just a tiny bit different. Zing, he was able to go on. Pearl Sun, who's been with us, was a standby. She's now been contracted to do 3 different tracks, um, and she was the one that came in and did a role last Saturday, and she looked at the script that morning after she had been called, said, yeah, I'll be fine. I just need to do a transition rehearsal, and came in. Everyone came in early. She did one transition rehearsal, um, and then just went, okay, yep, okay, I'm grabbing this chair, grabbing this chair. Oh, right, I grabbed this chair. Oh, this is when I go through. Oh, I got to make sure I take the phone off stage, and then boom, and then she did the show, and it was flawless. It was amazing to witness it, and it's funny because you get so happy when that happens, but the reason it happened is because you had people out with COVID. So you love the end result. You just hate the reason that you had to do this special thing. Um, our current Claude was from the Australia company. Joel left, and this guy called Gene Wigand came in, and he was from the Australia company, and tiny little subtle differences, but a couple days of rehearsal, boom, he was ready to go. um, Jen Colella is going to come back to us. She's going to have a couple days of rehearsal. Boom, she'll be ready to do the show. Um, we're getting Sharon from the tour. She's going to come in to cover us for a little bit. Um, we're getting, there's another, Josh is going to be leaving us for a little bit, and we're getting another person, Jordan Barber. He's coming in. He'll have a couple of days of rehearsal, and then zing, he'll come in and be with us. So it's a big, there's a Broadway company, and then Australia, and the national company in London and Canada, but it's a gigantic, just one big family. And it's like, okay, well, who's ready right now that used to do it or that's leaving? They can come and help us. um, we wouldn't have been able to do the shows that we did in December without without people from the tour, without people, former Broadway cast members. We were bringing in people left and right, and it was crazy.
So how does it work? For example, if a stage manager in the tour company discovers that too many people are out, does he contact you or a company manager? Like, how do you arrange everything?
Well, we have COVID safety managers now, which never existed before the pandemic, obviously, and everyone's getting tested. Depending on the severity in New York at the time or wherever, um, you get tested twice a week, 3 times a week. The most we've ever been tested was 3 times a week. Um, During the height of Omicron, we were getting tested every day just to make sure we had enough people. But as far as our regular testing schedule, we either get tested twice a week or 3 times a week. And so that happens. And then that's pretty much how we find out, do we have enough people to do a show? And so on testing days, sometimes it can get a little dicey. Um, but hopefully everyone's fine and everyone's negative, and you go and you do a show. If someone does test positive, the COVID safety person contacts stage management and says, you know, I'll just use your name because you have to respect people's privacy. So hey, Alina tested positive for COVID, and then we go, okay, and then Alina's standby is Happy, and so we go, okay, Alina's out, Happy's in, and and Alina, we'll see you in 10 days. Love you. Take care of yourself. See you in 10 days. And then someone else, tests positive, then you just do that until you can't do it anymore. And at the height of Omicron, we would do it, and I would go into work not knowing if we had a show. I would get there at 11 o'clock for a matinee and go get tested, make sure that I'm negative, and then I'd go, and then they would go through, and our COVID safety people would go, well, we have enough men, and I'd be like, okay, still waiting on results for Roman. I still got 4 more women. We're waiting on their results, and then you only have 3 standbys per male and female, and it's like, all right, well, we're down to 3, so at least we know we have a show because our standbys are ready to go. And then it's like, oh nope, so and so tested positive. So it's like, all right, so one of our standbys is going to go on, and then we literally, if there's any cast change, you have to put that in the program. And on during the height of Omicron, instead of putting 8 different inserts in the program, we just printed them up every show, and it would just have a list who everyone was that particular day. I just lost your video, by the way.
Hear me now?
Up there you are.
Sorry, my camera is malfunctioning today. Sorry
That's
about
okay.
that.
That's okay. Um, but I was saying during the height of Omicron, we sometimes didn't know if we had a show. We would show up for work and we didn't know if we were going to do a show that day. And then and for our inserts, we would be standing by, just to put who would play who that day in the show, and then print them up and then get them to front of house as quickly as we could. In some cases we were like, okay, here's 500 of them, give these out, and we'll tell them we're giving the other 500 in 15 minutes, and just to get them stuffing and inserting the cast and the playbill. We haven't had to do that since January, and hopefully those days are done. But yeah, but like I said before, we're not through with this. It's still very much here.
That's probably so challenging for Melissa in the wardrobe department.
Yeah, there's Melissa. I cannot say enough about Melissa. She, like, for example, that one Saturday a couple weekends ago, I contacted her at 7 a.m., said, we're probably going to have Pearl come in. Do we have clothes for her? And she said she literally left her home. She lives in Jersey as well. Left her home, went to the warehouse where we have a lot of our spare costumes, and started pulling stuff. And some days she would even, like, all right, I pulled stuff, but I still need to stop. I'm going to stop by Marshalls and get a pair of jeans, and whatnot. And there she's like calling people saying, what's your size and stuff. And I just lost you again. Yeah, I mean, she'll go to a store, she'll go to the warehouse, she'll get stuff, and it I don't know how she does it. I've known her from at what she's able to exactly the same as the original design, but anyone comes in, puts on those clothes, you go, up, you're Hannah today, you're Beulah today, you're Diane, you're Claude, because she's able to get things that are so close at a moment's notice. It's insane.
Okay, before I disappear again, just last question. Probably I have to buy a new web camera. Something is wrong. So I'm terribly sorry about that. Is
Oh, good.
there anything else you would like to talk about before we finish today?
I just want to go back. I just want to get back to normal, whatever normal, used to be. But I remember, just being able to give tours to people backstage, and you get the, when you have spouses of people who died on 9/11 coming to the show and seeing this story and thanking us. I missed that. I made really close friends with some widows of firefighters and first responders. I miss, students, bringing a big student group in. A former colleague of mine now teaches in Atlanta, and she brought her class to come and see the show. And I was able, it's pre-pandemic, brought them on stage. Everyone was kissing the cod. They were taking pictures. And you get, and they're theater students, and they're just so amazed and thrilled to be on a Broadway stage, to be up there and asking questions, and then meeting the cast members, and having on the walls are all the pictures of all the celebrities that have come backstage and taken their pictures with us, and that can't happen right now. We could have Oprah Winfrey in the house, and we can just go, oh my God, Oprah's here, but she can't come on stage. And like I said before, my family can't come on stage. My son can't ride the turntable. He can't see the lights being checked. Can't flip the cue lights on the calling desk. And that's what I miss. I miss that only the show, only the members of the company can be backstage, and and even if something happens, I had an issue just a couple of days ago with Elijah and a doctor appointment, and my wife was out of town on a job, and so I had to miss a matinee. And used to be able to just call someone and say, hey, can you cover me today? I need to be out. But now it's like you have to call the COVID person and say, I'm out. Sandy's going to come in and cover me. She's got to get a test. And then that particular day was a testing day, so I missed our regular testing cadence. So then I had to go through a special thing to get tested before I could come back in the building. And I hate someone, getting COVID and then saying, okay, you need to leave the theater. We'll see you in 10 days. And it just seems so callous, because you want to hug them, but you can't because they have COVID, and you don't want to get COVID. And so I just want to go back to normal. I want to be able to give a tour backstage to a group of students and have my son there, and that's what I miss. So right now there are a lot of shows that have opened, and typically in the spring a lot of shows do open because they, for Tonys and whatnot. But we were sold out every day before pandemic. Literally standing room only, sold out, grossing over $1 million a week. And but now there's not as many international tourists in town. Hopefully that'll pick up. It's picking up, but hopefully it'll continue to pick up. And a big thing in Midtown, the New York Times had this statistic that as far as the workforce that is there Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, the Manhattan workforce is only like 8% of what it was, and that's huge. So our Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, where typically those would be more locals coming to see the shows, taking a long lunch and coming to see a show on a Wednesday, or going to work and then going to see a show on Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Thursday night. And that's not happening because so many people are still working from home. And so that's why right now, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are much lighter than they've ever been. And then it picks up on the weekend. So just want to look out. I don't want to see empty seats. I want to see, packed houses again. And I'm fine wearing a mask. If we have to wear a mask for 2 years, I'm fine. But I'd rather wear a mask and have 1,200 people out there seeing, or 1,100 people out there seeing the show instead of, half of that. Yeah, that's what I miss.
Well, thank you so much for such, sincere answers and for making time for me despite the busy schedule.
That's okay, of course.
It was such a pleasure to see you again, Gary.
Yeah, so
Stay
good seeing you
safe.
too, Elena.
Hopefully, eventually, maybe in 2 years, I'll be able to see you again at stage door.
I would love that. So
Yeah.
I would love to not see you over Zoom. So,
Yeah.
but all righty, well, take care, Elena. It's great seeing your face.
Bye. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You do the same. Bye-bye.